South Africans are breathing a sigh of relief as order and calm are restored in both KZN and Gauteng. Looted supplies are being replenished and roads that were blocked are now operating. The question we are asking tonight is, what are the underlying factors that have led to the rampant looting and violent unrest we saw last week? And what is the way forward for President Cyril Ramaphosa? To help us answer those questions, I'm now joined by the organisation Undoing Tax Abuse CEO Wayne Duvenage. Wayne, always great to have you on the show. I want to start off not with those two questions in that intro. I want to start off with a thread of 21 tweets that Outer has just posted this evening. And those tweets detail a litany of corruption that have been taking place in South Africa from as far back as 2004. We're talking VBS, Steinhoff, Arms Deal, Eskom, Denel, SAA, PIC, all the cases, inquiries, investigations that have been making up the bulk of news in South Africa for over 20 years now. What, in your view, is the correlation between that corruption, that silent looting, as you term it, and what we've seen in the country in the past 2 weeks?
Well, I think what we are seeing now is the culmination of an unsustainable socio-political structure that we have, where we have government in place that is leading a country with, first of all, political parties and self-interests ahead of the public and the country's interests. And when you look back at everything that has unfolded, we certainly haven't seen leadership that has tackled the issues that underlie or underpin a strong, vibrant economy, one that has so much potential for prosperity, and yet we sit here 25 years later in our new democracy and wonder what has gone wrong. Why is our education producing youth that are largely, in many respects, unemployable when you look at the new digital world and where we're going as a country? Why do we
needs first and service delivery first? People took that into their own hands. They took what they had been lacking. Obviously sparked, instigated, as you said, by a political few. Those instigators hopefully are going to be found out soon. But what does that mean about the way forward for President Cyril Ramaphosa? It's years and years and years, decades of malfeasance, of corruption, of putting their own needs first from certain individuals in charge. And how do we reverse that? We can't even begin to do it. So how do we move forward from this to prevent exactly that happening again?
Yeah, well, I think this ruling party, the ANC, have been in power since our new democracy, and what we've seen is a repetitive cadre deployment strategy that hasn't worked. So you find from national government, cabinets right the way down through local government into municipalities, you have people that are put into positions not because they are capable, have the qualifications and experience, but because they are cronies. They are linked to people who in the know, and they get given jobs that they are unable to fulfill. I mean, seriously, we ask questions of what is Gwede Mantashe doing, heading up minerals and energy? What is Fikile Mbalula doing, heading up the complexities of transport? And we know they have advisors, but ministers in cabinets need to be visionary. They need to be driving an agenda. You know, if you look at transport, we've had 7 ministers now over the last 10 years or so, trying to deal with decades of road carnage and policies and processes that just never get momentum. Our whole ERP, the energy resource planning of our electricity crisis that we sit with now, has just languished. And what the president needs to do now, and I think he's been talking about it, is to sit back and say, how do we put competence into positions that matter? How do we stop this cadre deployment? We've seen municipalities, multi-billion rand budgets with a CFO that doesn't have a qualification beyond a bookkeeper. I mean, how, you know, in business, if you're trying to run a multi-billion rand business with a CFO that hasn't got the right qualifications, it will fail. And we've seen our municipalities, you have to just look at the Auditor General's reports, failing around the country, and recently some of them now being downgraded to junk status by the ratings agency. So we need to fix this and fix it properly, because we have all the potential to be so brilliant as a country, and we've seen how we can come together as people. But unless our leadership take the baton by the mantle and deal with the real underlying issues, we will sit here forever and a day not unlocking the potential that this country has.
Wayne, how do we get South Africans to give the same kind of emotional and intellectual response and outrage on a daily basis to this persistent, pervasive, constant, silent looting as they have given in this past week? Is it possible? Because I think partially our complacence makes us complicit.
Yeah. This is why a strong and robust civil society is needed to stroke the conscience of our leaders. We cannot give up. We need to be persistent and relentless in our call for a change, in our call for a mindset shift from government. And I think there's signs of the trajectory going in the right direction. Just ensuring that the rule of law has been applied to the previous president's situation. That is a good start. But I'm afraid we've seen how lacking our intelligence agencies, how slow and lethargic our police force is, and this has been a problem with us for years. And then we've also, seen how our criminal justice system and the NPA is undercapacitated. So what we need to do is do everything we can to get the authorities to sit up, for leadership to sit up, for the presidency to sit up and do something now. Now he has an opportunity, and he's been speaking about the cadre deployment issues and problems. And I think it's time to call some of these cabinet ministers together and say, look, it's time to move on. As we've always said, you can't leave people who created the problem in charge of finding the solution. It's time for many of them to retire. It's time for those who are ill-equipped and not suited for their positions to move on, and let's start plugging cabinet and leadership throughout this country with the resources and people that have, and there are tons, there's more than enough here. We shouldn't be bringing engineers in from Cuba and teachers, and that we've got people unemployed here. We shouldn't be allowing what's happening with the quality that we have, but we also got to up our game when it comes to education. The health system is just broken. NHI will never work unless we fix the underlying problems.
Wayne, the list is endless of things we need to fix, but we've got to identify a starting point. Do you think that starting with the judicial system and capacitating them to try and deal with looters in the past is a good place to start? How do we recover some of those looted funds?
Well, it is a good place to start, but you need to capacitate them, and we need fundamental shifts. You might have to set up corruption courts to start the process. Otherwise, we'll sit here for another 10 years and get through maybe 10 or 15 at the rate that we're going looters. So we need to get moving on this. But I think to start with, as this country, it's a multifaceted approach. There's no silver bullet. The president needs to clean up his cabinet, get action going in the various ministries as we deal with corruption, bring in civil society. I mean, recently we had one of the state-owned entities, I think it was the nuclear regulator, introduce a citizen from civil society onto the board. That's a good start. We need more of that. We need more of that in SOEs. We need more of that on the boards of so many state entities that we can start undoing and unraveling the rot. So I think it's a multifaceted approach. We have a national anti-corruption strategy that is unfolding, but it's taking far too long. So let's not think that there's one matter that we can deal with. It's a range of things. And I think the presidency is well advised. He's got advisors. They're moving, but they're not moving fast enough or decisive enough or deep enough. And if we get urgency now, after what has happened in the last 2 weeks, the recipe is there, or the opportunity is opened up for the president. It is now time to seize that opportunity and stop moving slowly and do what is necessary to bring about the change. Because if we sit here in 5 years' time and we haven't started the journey of fixing education, of fixing health and security, of dealing with unemployment and inequality, then, we're going to have problems for a long time to come.
To the presidency, you heard it here, not a cabinet reshuffle, a cabinet spring clean. Thank you very much, Alta CEO Wayne Duvenage.